would have been the last of the prophets. These and so many others, some that Niermann. These are the ones who came. And what did they do to the servants who came to them to collect what belonged to God, the master, the owner of the vineyard? They rejected them, turned them away, would listen to their authority. But who did they come from? They came from God. They had His authority to speak His authoritative word. And Jesus is pointing that out to them. You've always done this, and you're still doing it even now. And then in the parable, the owner's son, yes, that's Jesus. Absolutely, unmistakably, Jesus is the son in this parable. And what do the people of Israel, what do the tenants do? They kill the son. Kill him. This would happen in their world in just a matter of days from Jesus telling this. And what's really striking is, if you catch this, is that what did they think they were going to get when they killed the heir? The inheritance is going to be ours now. What kind of crazy cockamamie thing is that, right? That if the inheritance goes to my children and they think, if we kill Dad, then we'll get it all. That's crazy thinking, isn't it? What were they doing? Wanting to have it their way, right? Or thinking they could have it their way. That's what happens when we don't listen to the authority of God. We literally are tricked to thinking that we can have it our way if we ignore Him. And that's where they were. So what does this mean for us? We're a long way away from these days when this first was spoken by Jesus, right? What does this mean? Well, first, there's two things that we really should cling to here in our own Christian walk. First, you yourself are someone who challenges God's authority. You are. You do it every day. You do. The Lord tells you something from His Word. Maybe you will hear it today, and you will say, I don't like that. I'm not going to follow that part of the Bible, right? Or another way we do this is probably the easiest way we do it because we're so busy, right? We don't even hear God's authority in our life because we don't read it except for when we're here sometimes. And so we don't even know what His authority says in our life, which means that we're victim to anything that the world or Satan will throw at us. And we end up, without even knowing it, turning our backs to His authority. We are spurned by our own sinful natures to not want to listen to God's authority. And if we're not guided by God's Word, if we're not drawn here to church and being in the Word on our own and hearing the God's Word, then guess what? We're willing to be in cahoots with Satan and the rest of the world, even if we don't even realize it. Because we end up throwing our arms up and saying, how can the Lord limit me with all of His rules? There's another thing that we should really grab onto in this text as well, this parable. You are God's children. What I just mentioned to you at the first issue is you heard that today, and you are God's children. And knowing that you struggle with His authority in your life, that's His law to you, and you are repenting of that right now. And so you will be forgiven for that. You are forgiven for that. But when you walk out of here, being the forgiven one who struggles with God's authority, you're going to interact with a world that cares not about God's authority. And you are going to be challenged by these people, and therefore your faith is going to be challenged. And this is something that you have to realize when you walk out of this safe place. Your faith will be challenged. Who you submit to, the authority of God, they will say to you, you are nuts. God is not the authority. And they will tell you that your absolute truth, which is the Holy Bible, God's revealed authority in your life, they will tell you that that is not true, that there is no absolute truth in this world. And you will be challenged that way. And you need to be aware of it. Being here, first repenting and receiving the forgiveness, is the first step. And the second is being equipped by God, giving His strength through His forgiveness to be a witness to His authority in this world, who won't recognize you as someone who deserves to be heard. This is going on in our world, and we've got to be aware of it. Do you know, just this week, if I were to grab 2 headlines that came out this week, do you know that the world that we live in, that our policy of our government as of this week, the Health and Human Services